please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Carey?
Present.
Chilson?
He has an excused absence for this meeting.
Parker?
Present.
Hutchings?
Here.
Ruffridge?
Present.
Nelson?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
Move to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Are there any changes to the agenda or consent agenda? Would the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Approval of minutes, September 28, 2022, council meeting minutes. New business resolutions, Resolution 2022-042, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract in the amount of $48,000 with Navigate AK for municipal lobbying services, introduced by the city manager. Resolution 2022-043, certifying the results of the October 4th, 2022 regular city election, introduced by the interim city clerk. That item was provided late to the council and is available to the public. New business other items, action memorandum 2022-023, request for an excused absence from the October 12th, 2022 regular city council meeting for Councilmember Chilson. And that is your consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments on any of the items just read by the clerk? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on anything that was on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom and I see no hands raised. Having no one wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda is back before the council. Are there any council objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Seeing no objections, the agenda and consent agenda are approved by unanimous consent. Now, item number 3 on the agenda is swearing in of elected officials. Interim City Clerk Hewitt will now give the re-elected officials their oath of office.
I, David Carey,
I, Lisa Parker,
Do solemnly swear
that
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the state of Alaska,
the laws of the state of Alaska,
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Soldotna,
the laws and ordinances of the city of Soldotna,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge my duties as a council member to the best of my ability.
as a council member to the best of my ability. So help me God. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you for serving.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item. We'll now call for a brief recess for the purpose of having a council group photo taken in the front of City Hall as part of a thank you to the voters of Soldotna for passing Proposition 2022-A for the Soldotna Fieldhouse. The council will be stepping out of chambers briefly for the photo. The meeting will reconvene in approximately 10 minutes. May I have a motion to take a recess?
I'll move to recess.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Hutchings. Are there any council objections? Seeing none, we'll take a brief recess and step outside. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. I will remind everyone to please be courteous and respectful during your comments. For those of you in the audience, I request you refrain from applauding, cheering, whistling, clapping, or boisterous behavior during the public comments. Please be respectful of the views of the speaker, even if you do not agree with them. Please observe proper decorum and not engage in personal attacks or disruptive behavior. The council will respectfully listen to your comments. We are not here tonight to engage in a debate, but to listen to your comments and concerns. Again, comments are limited to 3 minutes, 20 minutes aggregate. Please provide your name and address for the record and fill in the sign-in sheet by the microphone. Anyone?
I'd like to talk.
Okay. State your name and address for the record and include it on the
Someone
phone
in
there.
front of me here?
Yep.
Smalley?
My name is Susan Smalley. I'm reading this, so I'll get it right. 105 Linwood Lane, Kenai. I'm a 52-year Alaskan resident. I've been married 54 years. I'm a Kenai resident, but I spend considerable time and money in Soldotna. After the brutal attack on Tammy Willis and the subsequent safety town hall, I felt compelled to declare myself an ally and advocate for the LGBTQ matters. I'm embarrassed to share with you that I was shocked to discover what some of our neighbors, both young and old, are subject to just in living their daily lives. It both saddens and maddens me that this kind of ugly is alive and well here, and there are those who are made to feel unsafe, and for me this is intolerable. As a woman of faith, I have been proud to walk and participate in the Pride marches. I reject the labels of groomer and pedophile that are at best ignorant, at worst malicious. I'm an advocate because I value the safety and the sacredness of all children, youth, and adults. Walking with any sign at any time, and I have to say this happens mostly in Soldotna because that's where I am, walking is like shouting target. I've been flipped off. I've had profanities shouted at me and been the target of what I discovered is called rolling coal. You know what that is, Officer Ring? Yeah, okay, thank you. I didn't. According to my non-scientific study, most of these actions came from men driving by in trucks. Both Hal and I, my husband, go to these events wearing shirts offering free hugs from Grandma and Grandpa, Mom and Dad, etc. My first hug response to my shirt, a long hug, was from a young person who had been made homeless the night before when she shared with her family that she was gay. We cried together also. I wrote one of the first letters to the council after this event. It seemed critically important because both Hal and I were there from the beginning until the end. Not one person has asked me what I saw or what I did or what happened there. I chose to go. Hal chose to go. People in attendance of all ages chose to be there. Protesters against the event stood with signs, exercising their rights. There was no interaction with them. Groomer and pedophile are dog whistle words, and sadly, they are effective among too many people. And I'm here to invite anybody who has a problem or thinks they know what happened or would like information to contact me. I'd happily give you my phone number, I'd give you my address, I'd pay for your coffee. But this is just too important that there are people in our community who are not feeling safe because of their sexual orientation. And it's just not okay in this town, and it's not okay in the borough, and it's not okay in Kenai. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Delifka, 33850 Winston Circle, Soldotna, Alaska, 99669. Wow, I am really, really happy to be here tonight. Mostly I'm here just to say thank you to every single person on this council. It's been an amazing ride. A lot of work put in by everybody, but it all comes back to everyone that's sitting on this council right here. You guys gave the community an opportunity. We got some answers on that decision, and I just thank you so much. It's kind of easy right now. Everybody's kind of beating up on government and all this, but sometimes give credit where credit's due. And we have an amazing town because of leaders and the vision that you guys and your predecessors have done. And this city is amazing. I kind of, on my stump speech for the field house, started to do a lot of research just on the city itself and how well run, but also how great we have it. When you start looking around the state, you start looking around the country, crime everywhere else across the country is struggling. Look at Soldata. Garbage. I mean, everything that you look at, the rest of the country is just struggling with. And then I go up and down the streets in Soldotna. It's incredible. Not only from just the looks of it, but how this city's been run. And I just appreciate it because everyone up here, I know you guys are just volunteers. And it's really easy just to come in and trash you guys every night. But it's amazing that you guys come in here every night, you take that and you keep pushing forward and have that vision. And I thank you for that, for giving up your time. You could be at home with your kids, Justin, or putting it towards your business, Linda. That's a big sacrifice for no money, right? You guys are just here every night. A lot of times there's no one in here. I've been in here a lot of times, there's no one in here. Just doing the job for us. And we all get to benefit from that. And I really, really appreciate every single one of you and the sacrifices you make to do that. And this specific project, thank you. On behalf of my kids, my brother's kids, everybody else, what an amazing opportunity for our community. And thank you. Again, I really, really appreciate that opportunity for putting on the ballot and letting us, again, have some good discussion on it. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say tonight. Thank you, everybody here.
Any comments, Mr. Ruffridge?
Thank you, Mr. Delifka, for those kind words. I will have to say I can echo those back to you. I attended a number of the meetings that you were at, Rotary meeting and then the one at the Sports Center, and hearing you speak on the field house and the reasons for it, and take questions, field questions. And again, that was all volunteer effort. You're doing it because you think it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to have an opportunity for your kids as well. And I really appreciate the diligent effort you put in, not just this time, but the time before, the effort that you put forward with Boys and Girls Club. And I don't think, for myself, I've ever had an opportunity to say thank you for the work you do. So I really appreciate your efforts.
Ms. Hutchings?
And I'd like to thank you, Jeff. It's been a pleasure working with you both times on this. I'm the one that does the APOC statements, so nobody has to. And it's been refreshing to see people come out and band together, and also for all the work you do for Boys and Girls Club. Thank you so much.
And I will echo those same terms. Thank you for all the work you've done on this project. You and everyone else in that group did a fantastic job. And it's your efforts and all their efforts that made this work. And now, in about 2 years, we should be enjoying it, I hope. Thank you. We'll leave it up to Kyle now.
Hello, I'm Jacob Barlow. I live at 48176 Ryan Creek Circle, Soldotna, Alaska. Mr. Mayor, council members, and city administration, thank you for your time and for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Also, congratulations to Councilmember Carey and Vice Mayor Parker on your reelection. I'd like to take this time to respectfully remind the council that we are still looking for resolutions surrounding the indecency that took place in the Soldotna Creek Park. I also wanted to thank those of you that have made time to have conversations with us about this topic. I know you're all very busy, so I appreciate your willingness to meet with us and discuss the issue further. We missed the most recent city council meeting because we've been working towards proactive involvement rather than just repetitive involvement. Personally, I also just had my third son, so I'm soaking up every minute of that I can. This topic has brought forward many different opinions and personalities, as well as some ill-mannered and disrespectful individuals. But those individuals do not speak for or represent all of us. We also believe that some of you have been treated unfairly, and we're very disappointed that that has happened. There are many of us who want to be approachable, reasonable, and helpful moving forward and hope to develop a good working relationship with the council in order to resolve some of the issues and concerns shared by many community members on this topic. Many of us have been working to develop and provide to the council possible solutions to avoid situations like this in the future without infringing on individual freedoms or subjugating minority groups. One solution we're working on is to simply address wording on the Soldotna Park's use application and rental forms. We hope to have productive and realistic solutions prepared and presented in the near future, and look forward to your feedback. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to getting to know some of you more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, go ahead, Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you. So, thank you, sir, for your comments. Were you at the meeting when the city manager, Queen, outlined the process that we are using going forward? And that the administration will first be working with the Parks and Rec Advisory Council?
Yep, I was there. I went to the Parks and Rec meeting as well, and I actually had a meeting with City Manager Queen as well, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So it is a work in progress. It's not
For sure.
something you can just snap your fingers and it will be solved and go away. It is something that we are working on and hope to resolve in the next few months.
Okay, yeah, and we want to be as helpful as possible and have a voice in that process if possible. So,
Absolutely. Every person who comes into this room and wants to participate in the process, in my mind, I'm listening to all suggestions and input.
well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wish to make any public comments? I'm looking at Zoom, and I see no hands raised. I see no one else here in the chamber, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Assembly and Legislative Report. Are there any representatives from the borough or the state in attendance who would like to speak? And I see no one here in the chambers, and I see no one on Zoom. So moving on to the next item, item 7, public hearings. Ordinance 2022-029, amending Soldotna Municipal Code, Title 17 by establishing a new subchapter 17.10.390, accessory dwelling units, ADU, and amending sections of SMC Titles 1, 13, and 17 to establish standards for accessory dwelling units, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the adoption of ordinance 2022-029, amending Soldotna Municipal Code, Title 17.
May I have a second, please? Thank you, Ms. Hudgens. A report from the administration.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Director of Economic Development and Planning, Mr. Zarneski, to provide the admin report.
Thank you. The ordinance before you establishes a new section of code for accessory dwelling units. Standards are proposed for several sections of existing code are modified to facilitate this new language. The intent of the ordinance is more efficient and flexible use of our existing residentially zoned land, more efficient and flexible use of our housing stock and of our infrastructure. Benefits include a greater mix of available housing options, increased property values, and neighborhood stability. The proposed changes are especially timely considering current housing availability and changing demographics. As you are aware, the Planning Commission conducted a work session on accessory dwelling units on July 6th and unanimously approved Resolution 2208 on August 3rd. Similarly, the council held a work session on September 14th to review the Planning Commission's recommendations. The city's comp plan includes a goal to promote and encourage housing diversity for people of all ages, income, and household size. The attached ordinance provides an inclusive code amendment that would address this goal through the allowance of accessory dwelling units, as in the staff report.
Thank you. Public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to come or speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Anyone here in the chamber wishing to speak on ordinance 2022-029? Seeing no one here in the audience wishing to speak, looking at Zoom, I see no hands raised there. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, call for the roll. A call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Parker,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
Yes.
Ruffridge,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carey.
Yes?
You have 5 yes votes and 1 absence.
Thank you. Ordinance 2022-029 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is ordinance 2022-030, rezoning Track 5 North, R10 West, Section 28, Seward Meridian, KN 2022023, Soldotna Junction, Sub Creekside Estates, Track D2, from commercial to rural residential, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Vice Mayor Parker.
I move to enact ordinance 2022-030, an ordinance rezoning Township 5 North, Range 10 West, Section 28, Seward Meridian.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. Ms. Hutchings?
I would like to declare a conflict. This is a family trust that owns this property.
Thank you, and yeah, we'll see, there is a conflict there, and you can abstain from voting on it. All right. Now, public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Oops, excuse me, report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I would like to ask Director of Economic Development and Planning, John Zarneski, to report on this Planning Department legislation.
Thank you. On August 3rd, the city received a request from the Jack Farnsworth Trust to rezone Track D2 of the Soldotna Junction subdivision from commercial to rural residential. The 19-acre vacant parcel is located behind Fred Meyer's and can be accessed from either Sharkathmai Street on the north or from East Redoubt on the south. City water and sewer are not available to this parcel. The applicant's study of the parcel found that the land was unsuitable for commercial development due to this lack of services. Residential development does exist on 3 sides of this parcel, and those 3 sides are zoned rural residential. On September 7th, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing and recommended the parcel be rezoned to rural residential. The Planning Commission found that the city code requirements for rezoning were met, that the rezone is in harmony with the comprehensive plan and neighboring land uses, and without objection, recommended approval. Soldotna Municipal Code allows for rezoning when either the tract size is at least 2 acres or when the amendment would enlarge the neighboring district. In this case, both those conditions or requirements are met. So due to the location of this parcel being away from the Sterling Highway and from concentrated commercial development, the lack of sewer and water infrastructure, the proximity to Soldotna Creek, and due to its given compatibility with low-density residential development, staff supports this rezoning request. That's the end of the staff report.
Thank you. The public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing? Sir, please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
Cody McLean, 38183 Kenai Spur Highway. I'm representing the Farnsworth estate in this process, and I can answer any questions relating to the technical aspect of this project.
Are there any questions from the council? Saying none, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none here in the audience, I will look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised. Hearing no one else wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Mr. Rufford.
Just one, and I read this a few days ago, so I'm spacing out on where I read it. But so with this being zoned for rural residential, we have guidelines about fish habitats. Soldotna Creek is running through there. If somebody could just refresh my memory on what those are and how that would apply with potential homes in that area.
Sure, through the mayor. So the city of Soldotna does not have any specific requirements or setbacks on Soldotna Creek, only on the Kenai River. The Kenai Peninsula Borough, however, does have a 50-foot setback along Soldotna Creek and all in Andromeda Stream. So in this case, any activity within 50 feet of Soldotna Creek would require permitting from the borough if it would be allowed at all.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. So is on either East Redoubt or to the road to the north, is there any water or sewer along those where, should it get developed into residential, that they would be coming to the city to apply for extension of water and or sewer?
I can answer that question through the mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. Municipal water and sewer mainline systems are not available. It would require extensive extending of both of those facilities. The terminus on East Redoubt is before Petco, and on Charkathmai, it is on the highway and crosses to the map shop.
And a follow-up question, if I might. Along Soldotna Creek Park, the property both to the north and south of that, is that wetlands?
If you're referring to Track D in the southeast corner, yeah, it's all wetlands, and really, that's not the developable parcel, at least from a wastewater
I
perspective.
didn't think so, but thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Saying none, we'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Hutchings is abstaining. Councilmember Ruffridge,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
You have 4 yes votes, 1 abstention, and 1 absence.
And ordinance 2022-030 passes on a 4-0 vote with 1 abstention and 1 absent. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is ordinance 2022-031, accepting grant funds from the State of Alaska Department of Education and Early Development and increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $1,250 in the general fund to attend the annual Association for Rural and Small Libraries Conference, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the adoption of ordinance 2022-031, accepting grant funds from the State of Alaska Department of Education and Early Development and increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $1,250 to the general fund to attend the annual Association for Rural and Small Libraries Conference.
May I have a second? Vice Mayor Parker. A report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance would accept and appropriate grant funds from the Alaska State Library. It would be a reimbursable grant that would fund a trip to the annual Association for Rural and Small Libraries Conference conducted in Tennessee last month. We've been fortunate to receive this grant from the Alaska State Library for several years in a row. And I will add that City Librarian Nash is in attendance for any technical questions. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the chambers wishing to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised in Zoom. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Mr. Carey.
Thank you. If I could, for our librarian, please. First of all, just the idea that the state of Alaska provides the funds to send someone, in this case Tennessee, is wonderful. And so my first question would be, is this common that they do this? And second, if you don't mind, tell us some of the stuff that went on there. What did you learn?
Thank you. So in Alaska, it is common. It's actually from funds from the Library Services and Technology Act, and so they're able to send librarians from all across the state of Alaska to various conferences. And as a learning organization, it's essential that we go to these conferences to continue to improve services in our communities. I actually was not the one that got to attend, but I have heard back that there were some wonderful programming ideas. This is one of the better conferences because it's much more scalable to a library of our size. So I know we've got some new programming ideas for children and for teens and for adults, as well as some ideas for collections.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Saying none, we'll call for the roll. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Ruffridge,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes?
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes and 1 absence.
Ordinance 2022-031 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. The next item on the agenda is ordinance 2022-032, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $5,570 in the general fund for a donation received from the Soldotna Library Friends, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Vice Mayor Parker.
I would move to enact ordinance 2022-032, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $5,570 in the general fund for a donation received from the Soldotna Library Friends.
May I have a second, please? Thank you, Ms. Hutchings. A report from the administration.
Thank you. This ordinance would appropriate funds donated by the Soldotna Library Friends in support of a very popular hotspot lending program at the library. I will just note that the Soldotna Library Friends continues to be an enormous asset to the city and to the library and our community. My understanding is that the funds are driven from community donations and book sales and giving from the people here in our community. Again, I'll note our library folks in attendance if there are any technical questions. That concludes my report.
Would you like to add anything, Ms. Nash?
Always. So we do also have Mary Lou in attendance. She is one of the Friends of the Library Board members. So just like to thank them for all of their support as well as the support of our community. And lastly, I'll just add to what Mr. Cornelis said. The Hotspot program has been wonderful. We're hearing stories of people being able to complete job interviews and classes and to connect with people they haven't been able to connect with. And so that's been really wonderful to hear those stories. So thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll take a look at Zoom for raised hands, and I see no raised hands. So it's back before the council. Are there any council comments? Mr. Ruffridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question for our city librarian again. I'm just intrigued by the hotspot lending program. I knew that we had opportunities for computers and things like that to loan out. How many hotspots do we have? Do those typically go with a computer, or are they just going out by themselves? And how long do people get to keep them for?
Sure, yes. So we originally were able to purchase 10 hotspots with the American Rescue Plan Act funds through the IMLS, the Institute for Museum and Library Services. And then we actually were able to get 2 more because they were so popular. And we do have Chromebooks, so if people choose to check out a Chromebook and a hotspot, they can. But what we found is most people just check out the hotspot or the Chromebook, they don't usually check them out together.
And just how long is someone able to keep a hotspot for?
Yes, so for 3 weeks. So it's the same amount of time as for a book. Sure.
Any other council questions or comments? Vice Mayor Parker.
I just want to thank the Friends for all that you do for the Soldotna Library. The years I've been on the council, you guys are just, you're always there and you're always donating to the library and supporting the work that is being done at the library in support of our community and our neighbors. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Carey,
Yes?
Parker,
Yes.
Hutchings,
Yes.
Ruffridge.
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes and 1 absence.
Ordinance 2022-032 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is ordinance 2022-033, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $814,200 in the utility fund and $814,200 in the utility system improvements capital project fund for the Whistle Hill Sewer Utility Improvement Special Assessment District. project, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact?
Move to enact ordinance 2022-033.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. May I have a second? Mr. Carey? Thank you, Mr. Carey. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance would appropriate funding necessary to accomplish the design, permitting, and construction of the Whistle Hill Sewer Extension SAD project. Previous resolution 2022-027 authorized the SAD. The $820,000, the cost estimate, again, to design, permit, bid, and construct that project. We would anticipate beginning the design process after the potential passing of the companion resolution later tonight, with potential bidding to occur in spring of 2023 for construction as soon as weather permits. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Public hearing is now open. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll go to the Zoom, and I see no hands raised in Zoom. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Carey?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Hutchings?
Yes.
Ruffridge?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
You have 5 yes votes and 1 absence.
Ordinance 2022-033 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is new business. There's no new ordinances to introduce. And going to item B is resolution 2022-041, authorizing the city manager to enter into a sole source professional service agreement in the amount of $51,778 with Tri-Hydro Corporation for the design of the Whistle Hill Special Assessment District Sewer Extension Project, introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to adopt?
I
Ms.
will
Hutchings.
make a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-041.
I have a second, please. Mr. Ruffridge, thank you. Report from the administration.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a sole source request to contract with Tri-Hydro. They're a local firm with team members that have worked with the city in the past, particularly the multi-million-dollar Binkley Street remodel project quite a few years ago. This resolution would authorize a contract agreement with Tri-Hydro to perform the design, bid phase assistance, significant permitting through DOT and DEC, and then some construction administration and oversight for the Whistle Hill Sewer Extension Project. Tri-Hydro, through a third party, has already completed a significant amount of work to include conceptual planning, some programmatic and schematic phase engineering services. Much of that was done in coordination with city utility and public works departments with our, not formal oversight, but gave us opportunity to review and comment along the way as they perform those duties for a third party. So picking up where this firm left off would save the city both time and money. We would pick up in the design development phase, again, getting into permitting and construction. We reviewed the submitted costs and found them to be accurate, the expenses appropriate with industry standards, and tasks assigned correctly, such as design engineers performing design engineering work, draftsmen doing AutoCAD work and things of that nature. So this is simply a resolution authorizing award of a contract to Tri-Hydro in the amount of $51,778 for the Whistle Hill Sewer Extension Project. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on Resolution 2022-041? Seeing none, I'll look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised on Zoom. Having no one wishing to speak, this item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. So for the administration, this is just for the design of this. It would not be for once we go into construction, with them being on board to make sure things are going okay. Is that correct?
Vice Mayor Parker, through the mayor, it would also include some construction administration services and QA/QC during the construction phase. So this would, the previously adopted ordinance appropriating funding would fully fund the project from start to finish, to include this professional services agreement, including construction administration.
Okay, and that's the associated professional services.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other council questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Parker,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
Yes.
Ruffridge,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Carey.
Yes?
You have 5 yes votes and 1 absence.
Thank you. Resolution 2022-041 passes on a 5-0 vote with 1 absent. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is mayor and council reports. I don't have much tonight. I think after standing out there for about 10 minutes, I think we're getting into our winter weather time. I would probably remember to wear a coat next time, but it's getting to be that time of year. Being that time of year, it's also time to make any changes to committee assignments. So if any of you would like to change any of the committees that you're currently sitting on, or please let me know, and we'll make those adjustments as needed. I'm very pleased at the election results. We had a very good turnout. Very pleased with the field house. I had all the confidence in the world that it would pass. The only surprise I saw is the amount of the margin of victory on it. That was a pleasant surprise. So thank everyone. I thank the committee and everyone else who worked on that. They did a fantastic job. And now we'll be hopefully seeing construction starting. I was thinking Kyle might have been out there last week with a shovel and starting the dirt work, but maybe he's just going to wait another couple of days. So that is all I have. Next, we'll move on to council reports on boards and commissions, and that'd be Soldotna Planning and Zoning Commission. Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. The Planning and Zoning Commission met last week, and there were 3 action items that they took up. One was granting a conditional use permit for the development of a storage yard over on Karen Street. Legacy Electric is putting in a storage yard kind of adjacent to the Soldotna skateboard park, and that permit was granted. And then they had 2 subdivision plats to look at, Heath subdivision and then John Buchanan subdivision. There was some discussion at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting about the definition of commercial versus industrial zoning within the city limits, and I expect that it's something that the Planning and Zoning Commission may explore in the future, but it was interesting discussion. And also in attendance at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting was the mayor, who thanked the Planning and Zoning Commissioners for their service to the city, and it was nice to see a full complement of Planning and Zoning Commissioners. That's my report.
Any questions for the Vice Mayor Parker? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, City Manager's report. Report from the acting city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief, just touch on a couple quick items. Today, we conducted a substantial completion inspection at the sports complex for phase 2 of kind of 3 phases of that major remodel project. The only thing remaining is about 60 exterior doors, which is not a small task, but it can be done concurrent with full building use by the city and our patrons. So that's been a very successful project, and I do believe there is a Brown Bears hockey game that will be hosted there on Friday. So tomorrow we're doing one final walkthrough, tapping on exit signs, making sure everything's functional, door hardware is working, and I think folks will be pleasantly surprised and find that facility nicely done. Secondly, Fieldhouse, I will note just real quickly timing. Next steps, we too were very excited to see the outcome of the vote. We are ramping up our funding opportunity investigations. As you all are aware, the bond permits up to $15 million in debt obligation. It would be our ideal situation to bond less than that. So we're aggressively seeking, state and federal opportunities, other grant opportunities, trying to coordinate with delegations, looking into corporate funding and other financing details. We're also planning to have a meeting with the borough next week and see if we can coordinate and strategize with the understanding that their bond package passed as well. So there may be some mutually beneficial approaches there in regards to the amount of work that's going to be taking place over the next several years in our communities, as well as work with the Municipal Bond Bank and their procedures and timing. There could be some advantages to take advantage of there as well. As far as timing goes, again, best case scenario, we're breaking ground next summer. We have the capacity to wrap up the design phase and get into the bid phase pretty quickly and strategize the ordering of materials and such, but we're also wanting to take advantage of as much funding opportunity as we can. So we're going to have to think about construction cost escalation, inflation, availability of materials, et cetera, and then potential revenue sources that can offset some of the expenses that are out there right now. So work in progress. Best case scenario, we break ground next summer to start seeing some yellow iron moving earth. That being said, it could get pushed back, but that's what we'd strive to achieve. I will note, though, that pre-engineered metal buildings have about a year-long lead time these days, so certainly won't see anything vertical in some time. But construction timeline, about 18 months to 2 years to build the facility. But we're excited. We do think that we'll be successful in finding some other funding, as well as the other funding scenarios that we talked about and many of the materials for the project. So that's kind of the timeline. If I would love to be out there with a shovel and get it started right away, but it'll be a little bit before we're turning to earth. But it will happen, and we'll be building a field house. So it's very exciting. Last thing I'll say very quickly, we're getting ready for winter. The very brief reprieve in the rain has allowed our grader operators to get out and get a last-minute touch-ups on gravel roads, get prepared for winter, some last-minute sweeping, get some stuff up while we can, and then a little bit of preparedness at the airport because snow's coming there as well. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is public comments. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? For those participating through Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. App users by pressing the raise your hand button, and phone participants by dialing *9 on your telephone. Please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Michelle Vasquez, and I live in Soldotna. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for letting me speak. I don't really have anything prepared. I want to follow up with some of the comments made by Ms. Smalley. She and I were the tail end of the Pride March this year because we had some suggestions of threats, maybe some gun violence, that type of thing. So we thought it'd be best to play it safe. So my husband and her husband participated in what they call the Queen's Guard, and that is to assure that none of the protesters could interfere with our Pride March. Everything went off without a hitch. We're used to protesters. We never interact with them because it's just not something we do. I've been very taken with some of the comments that I've heard over the last several weeks in the city council meetings, I've either been here in person or listened in on Zoom, I've heard some pretty outrageous comments about something that they think happened at Pride in the Park. Like Ms. Smalley, I was there from the very beginning to the very end. I saw nothing that could remotely be described as indecent. Grooming is, I don't know where that came from, but grooming is like a multi-year process when you have day in and day out interactions with a child. I've heard stuff like sexualizing children. I don't think that the people who say that accurately understand what that means. That's when you dress up a child to look other than what they are as a child, and therefore sexualizing them to attract whatever. Anyway, yesterday was National Coming Out Day. I don't know if you know that, but it's celebrated every year. And it's celebrated by those who have come out publicly and lived their authentic selves and their authentic lives. I want to remind you all, there are many in our communities who are too afraid to live their authentic lives. When we have Pride each year, that is a time for them to come out and feel safe, feel loved, feel seen, and understood. And I am hoping that nothing will be done to take that away or to take any aspect of that away. It is very important. There are too many living in the shadows, so to speak, because they're afraid. Many of our homeless children have been kicked out of their homes because they're gay or trans. We have to balance things. I don't think any of the people who have testified against what happened in Pride were actually at the event. And I am also open to answering questions about it. And I thank you for my time, for this time to talk, and I'm sorry that I rambled.
Any questions from the council? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment? Seeing no one here in the audience, I will look at the Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, is council comments. And we'll start out tonight with Ms. Hutchings.
Well, I will be redundant because I'm very excited about how our elections came out, and welcome again, Dave and Lisa. This is great news for us. The field house was such a win. I still can't hardly believe it. I went last night to the assembly meeting and watched our assemblymen be re-sworn in, Tyson Cox and Jesse Bjorkman and Brent Johnson. I never saw such big smiles on faces of Chief Browning or Superintendent of Schools Holland as there was last night, knowing that those bond issues passed. So it was a great meeting. It was a very refreshing meeting, and I was happy to be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
And I'll echo that. Welcome again to our newly reelected council members. I had to look back into the resolution last year certifying the election, and I was adding the numbers up, and sure seems like we more than doubled our voter turnout, and I'm certainly very happy to have that, and I certainly hope that that's a trend that continues with people being involved in the city. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I appreciate the members of the public who've come out to share their comments, their thoughts. I am distressed when I hear that people, as they walk around town, are getting threatened, and I am a person who sometimes doesn't always agree with people, but we can agree to disagree and be respectful at the same time. And I hope that we're going to make that turn to where we can agree to disagree and be respectful of one another. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the hard work that the Fieldhouse folks did to educate people on the Fieldhouse, and that it wasn't going to be something that was going to be a burden back on the city taxpayers. as I drive around Soldotna, within the Soldotna city limits, the number of construction projects that are going on around this town is amazing. You know, I see construction of a house on my street. We've got a new storage yard over here on the Sterling Highway. We've got the new Kendall going in, the new the care facility going in, and other building projects going on around town. It's just amazing, and it shows that people want to be here in Soldotna, that they like what the services that they're getting and what the city can provide. So it's encouraging, and between the field house and CES and the school bonds, the next 5 years here in the Central Peninsula are going to be quite busy, and if you need a job, it's not going to be hard to find one. And lastly, again, thanks to everybody who turned out to vote. 24% turnout is terrific. Thank you to those who supported me, and I very much like working with all of you, from the administration to the mayor and other council members. So look forward to working with everybody here in the community in the years ahead. Thanks.
Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank those people who provided me with the opportunity to be of service for the next 3 years. I greatly appreciate that opportunity and all those who voted. It's been mentioned, and I think the issue of workforce development, again, of needing people to help with all these many projects, certainly the bond issues are a part of it, the other realities in terms of building going on. To the extent possible, I sure want to encourage that our school district look at ways to increase vocational education and workforce development, working with people in the community. I think it's a critically unmet need, and I think we're going to have some difficulty doing all the projects because there will not be the personnel to do them. And again, I'm just concerned on workforce development, and I appreciate the school district's help on this. I look at the bond issues from another perspective. Everyone that's mentioned things, they're all accurate, but I'd also say this is an indication of support of government. People have faith in the government doing things, and certainly the idea of taking care of our schools on many different levels, the idea of making sure that we have fire and safety protection for our citizens, that's certainly important. The idea of recreational development, all of those are demonstrations of faith in government and its ability to do things, and faith in people making decisions. So again, I was very pleased with the numbers. I was glad with the city manager and her a note to us saying that she will look for ways to coordinate with and to seek synergisms in the different projects so that we're not all trying to do all things at the same time. But again, we look for ways to share different things. I think that's good. And the last thing I want to say, it takes courage to be willing to come out and to demonstrate that you defend those people who are socially oppressed. And I greatly appreciate the courage that that demonstrates. Thank you.
Mr. Ruffridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations to our re-elected council members. Certainly happy to share this much cooler side of the council chambers with you both. No offense to the left side. The vote in October, I have to say, Councilmember Hutchings took the word right away from me. I felt like our vote was refreshing, and we saw a diligent effort being put forth by many, many people in our community to help share information, to help educate people who are making decisions as voters. I felt like there was a lot of information produced on each of our bond issues. And I agree. I think there's a concerted effort to say now is a good time to produce some of these really incredible things for our community. I was actually genuinely surprised by how spoiled I think Soldotna is going to be with some of these, new fire stations and upgrades to schools and field house. And it is going to be an exciting time to be a part of this community for years to come, and certainly appreciate testimony today and those who come out and share from their heart. And I think that is the joy for me of being on this council is hearing from people, and so I think that's always an important aspect of this position. So thank you for being here, and bring on winter. We're ready.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Executive session, there is no need for one this evening. Meeting announcements. October 17th, 2022, Library Board meeting, 5:15 p.m. has been canceled. October 19th, special city council meeting at 5:30 p.m. here in the chambers. October 26th, 2022, regular city council meeting here at 6 p.m. in the chambers. Having no further items on the agenda, meeting's adjourned.